So, this month I also thought I would share some of my favourite music with you. And I've got a whole pile here next to me. And I've got the Haggises and shot as well. These are two little plushies that I bought in the Inverness Visitor Centre, the Loch Ness Visitor Centre. They're called haggis. They do a little squishy noise. I guess the running joke is that haggis are a wild little creature, and my mother, um, she's obviously not from Scotland. She didn't know really what a haggis was, and she did actually believe that haggis was some kind of animal. And that was pretty funny. Anyway, they're gonna be right here. So then I thought I would go from fairly light to heavy. And I'm gonna start with the classical music. So one of my favorite classical albums is just plain and simple Vivaldi's Four Seasons. And there's tons of them. You can buy them for really cheap. There's not really much to say. If you're not familiar with the Four Seasons, then give it a listen. The other one is the Planets by Gustav Hutzt. And there's different versions of this one as well. The first track, called Mars the Bringer of War, definitely give that a listen, because I feel like it's inspired so much film music, especially Star Wars. If you hear the track, and if you haven't heard it before, you'll definitely know what I mean. It's got that sort of war sound to it. And I also have Tomita's Nine Planets. So the Tomita is a Japanese electronic artist, and he sort of reinterpreted the classical Nine Planets in electronic form. So then I like to listen to Synth-Pop as well. I've got some Ultravox here. This is just the collection. The reason I got the collection was because I wanted certain songs to be on it. For example, a song called Hymn. I've got the album which has Dancing with Tears in My Eyes, which is the first song I came across by Ultravox. But the song Hymn is the one I would recommend that you listen to by Ultravox. It's one of my favourites. And then another one of my favourite songs is on this little single, which is I Come Undone by Jennifer Rush. Now this is an extended version because I just bought this at the record fair. I saw that the song was on it, and I thought, well, I need to pick this up. It was either that or it was a second-hand LP shop. But yes, go and listen to I Come Undone by Jennifer Rush. Then we've got Depeche Mode, which is maybe one of the very first bands that I listened to overall. So here we have Black Celebration. This is one of my favourite Depeche Mode albums, and then there's also Music for the Masses, which is my other favourite album, but I don't have it on CD. Then before we get into the heavier stuff, I've got just a little Dragon Ball theme tune collection. This is the Japanese version that I bought on some kind of fair. And this has all the Japanese series title songs that they had. And definitely enjoyed listening to this very much. Also an honorable mention for the pop divas of the 80s and 90s, like Bonnie Tyler and Belinda Carlisle. This one I got on the record fair, but we used to have a Belinda Carlisle best of at home that I would listen to. Also Cher, Annie Lennox, With and Without Eurythmics, Mariah Carey, Celine Dion. These are all people that I used to listen to when I was younger, and still, to some extent, I like to listen to their classics. And as far as female singers go, we've got this album by Chelsea Wolfe called His Spun. And this might just be the only Chelsea Wolfe album I truly like. I think her usual style is maybe not quite for me. It's a little bit light, but this album is a lot heavier. and I've enjoyed it very much. So if you like something that's a little bit more alternative, gothic, eerie, haunting, and she's got a beautiful voice as well, then I would recommend this album. I actually got way too warm with my little turtlenecks, and now I'm having a slightly. Now I'm wearing a slightly not so warm jumper. So then, Depeche Mode was a band that was sort of available in my house when I was growing up. So maybe at the age of 7, I first came across it, and we had cassette tapes that my mum had recorded, I think, from the radio or just from CDs. But then when I got into music and I started buying my own CDs, I think the very first one that I bought was this one here, Guns N' Roses Life Era. And I had the choice between these two in particular. This is the Aerosmith, what is it called? Ultimate Aerosmith Hits. Which one did I buy first? I think I bought this one first and then this one second. Or it was the other way around. Either way, these were my first two CDs, and that's obviously sort of hard rock. And then at some point when I was about, I think 14, I listened to the Black Album by Metallica, and that sort of also got me on a particular trajectory. But around the same time, I started to listen to, let me pick these up. Started listening to Nightwish, and I think I've got all the albums now up to this one, at which point I kind of like gave up on them, but this is how far it got. And my favourite Nightwish album would probably have to be Wishmaster. The other one is, the second one is probably Oceanborn. Oceanborn is in the car because we listened to it on the way driving out to a place. So then, general favourites and recommendations. We've got my favourite Metallica album is Ride the Lightning. My favourite Iron Maiden album, we've got this, hands down, Somewhere in Time. It's maybe a strange choice, you might think, but not only is this a great album that you can just listen all the way through, it has no fillers on it as far as I'm concerned. The cover is amazing, and this is what LPs are for, frankly. So you've got this whole scene on it, and if you have a closer look, you've got all this kind of all these hidden messages inside. So for example, the clock shows 2 minutes to midnight, which is a reference obviously to an Iron Maiden song. You've got all these different things, and the scene itself is very Blade Runner, and I just love spending about half an hour just to look for all of them and decipher all of them. And then runner-up is Peace of Mind as far as my favourites go. I don't know what else to say about it. It's a great album. One album that we got recently is Power Slave, and this is like a newer version, whereas these two, I'm pretty sure, are early pressings. And here you've got a similar situation. Quite a few hidden bits and pieces. So for example, there's a little man there. Favorite Black Sabbath album is Headless Cross. So I'm actually a fan of 80s Black Sabbath, as opposed to 70s Black Sabbath, which I don't mind, but it's not my favorite. I could just take it or leave it. Call me sacrilegious or cretin or whatever, but that's just how I feel. Something that we don't have, which is one of my favorite albums, is Merciful Fate's Melissa and Break the Oath. My partner has Break the Oath. Melissa is an LP I would really love to get. I realised I forgot about Deep Purple. I don't know where my head was. So we've got Deep Purple and Rock, which is probably my favourite Deep Purple album. It's got the Sweet Child in Time on it, which is a really cool song. If you haven't listened to it, I would recommend. And then they've got the
80s album Perfect Strangers as well, and I made sure to buy it with the bonus track Son of Alaric, because that's a super long instrumental, which I absolutely love. It's an honorable mention for AC/DC, who got me into starting to learn the electric guitar when I was around 15. And I think these are just probably the most famous albums that they've done.
Then a little mention to Rhapsody, which I have first 4 albums of, which I all like to an equal extent. Very much. Some of the modern stuff I don't think is as good, but I still like some of it. Oh yes, I forgot to mention, honorable mention to Brave New World, which is a great album. Kind of like a great coming back album for Iron Maiden. A little recommendation. I don't know how well known this band is, Angel Witch. Definitely everybody in our circle knows about it. We've seen this band play live at Hellfest as well, which was really cool. Now let's get into some Swedish bands, which I have a lot of. First off, we have the wonderful Candlemass. I should take this out. Nightfall is perhaps my favourite album. Now I think this is actually an original pressing as well, and my partner has the first Candlemass album, which is probably just as good. Maybe I prefer, I don't know, I can't say anymore which one I prefer. I think I like them both equally. Where would we be without Bathory, another original pressing? I don't even remember how I got this, but I did get it. Look at this amazing gatefold. I think the track listing is actually wrong, but amazing album. If you've never heard of Bathory and if you're into extreme metal, I don't know under which rock you have been living, frankly. This album is still covered in plastic, but this is Merciless. I think it's a bit more niche, but it's one of the early. It's a kind of era where thrash, black, and death metal were still the same thing. So they've got that kind of really mixed sound going on, very similar to early Death or the early German thrash bands like Sodom, Destruction, and Creator. They've got a pile of CDs. One of the first CDs that got me into more extreme metal was just plainly Amon Amarth's Twilight of the Thunder God. When I was studying in university, that was over 10 years ago now. Oh, was it 10 years ago? No, over 10 years ago, I started listening to this album and it sort of opened me up to other heavier stuff because this is quite melodic and it's accessible. But my favourite Amon Amarth album has to be One Sent from the Golden Hall. And I actually like to fall asleep to this album because it's kind of very monotonous in a way. It's melodic, monotonous. It's got that, so, it's almost like a washing machine rumbling in the background that's sort of like putting you to sleep. I've got my 2 favourite Opeth albums. This one, I would say, a well-loved album. Blackwater Park and Watershed. This is what the cover looks like. This is some kind of special edition. Then we've got the must-have of Dissection, the first 2 albums. Not really a fan of the 3rd album, like probably a lot of people. But obviously these 2 albums are amazing. And then I think the last Swedish mention is Katatonia, Dance of December Souls. Great album. So the last LP I've got here is a band called Black Breath, who are an American band. They sort of have a mix of hardcore and metal, sort of like thrash punk going on. And this is a recommendation if you've never heard of this band. Black Breath, Sentence to Life. And then the rest of the CDs to finish off. Got a few Russian bands here. We've got one of my favourite Russian bands, Alkonost. They sort of do folk metal with a female vocalist who does sort of, it's a little bit like Nightwish style, but a lot more Slavic sounding. So these are the Russian versions, but the translation would be Songs of the Eternal Oak and Between the Worlds. So these are the two Russian versions, which that one I bought in Russia. For some reason, it's easier to get these Russian bands in Germany because they're a lot more popular there than in Russia, where they're not as popular for some reason, even though they're from there. So go figure. And then another Russian band which has just mostly harsh vocals called Pagan Reign, and these are titles in Russian, but this album's called Fortress. And yes, I can definitely recommend Pagan Reign if you want someone to listen to. And then these lovely albums by Summoning. And we've got these, we've got the second album, Minos Morgul. We've got Dol Guldur. And we've got Stronghold. So perhaps, objectively speaking, Dol Guldur is the most accomplished sound-wise, but I kind of like them all equally as well. So that's a whole bunch of CDs. I think that's probably it. Oh, so then after dragging out literally half of my CD collection for you, I hope that you enjoyed this. Even if you don't listen to metal, obviously, most of my stuff is actually metal, and that's most of the stuff that I listen to. My tastes sort of include 80s synth pop, lots of metal, some classical music, maybe a little bit of just general folk music as well. So there you go.
One last honourable mention. So as any person who grows up in Germany, this is the kind of stuff that introduces you to metal technically when you're a child.